Hello everyone, welcome into another FIFA 23 Tactics tutorial video. I'm Ash or Brommer18 and this is the series where I show you the best tips and tutorials on how to make different types of tactics systems. Today I want to talk to you guys about what you can do to make successful defensive systems in FIFA 23. Now, it's worth bearing in mind that it's very tough to get successful defensive systems in FIFA 23 because of the gameplay. You know, the gameplay just lends itself towards goals. It's very hard to defend. It can be frustrating at times. The gameplay is just orientated around goals. So it's very tough to do this, but there are tips that you can do to make these defensive systems, and I know it can actually be very fun because of the nature of the gameplay to play in the defensive style. So let's talk about what we can do with that today. Just quickly, as I do in every video, I want to tell you guys, if you are interested in getting lots of perks and rewards and you want to support the channel more, check out my Patreon down below because you can get access to lots of fantastic rewards, including exclusive tactics videos that you'll only get on Patreon, won't be available on YouTube, as well as my FIFA 23 custom tactics package with rankings and ratings of every real system I cover on the channel, as well as Discord server access, Fantasy Football League access, early access to videos, and a whole lot more. Also check out my video games podcast. The link to that is down below if you want your video games fix. Me and my pal do a fairly regular podcast, so do go and check that out as well. And with that being said, let's talk about the defensive tips. So first things first, as we do in all these videos, we're going to go into formations. What formations are best for a counter-attacking system? Well, first things first is you are looking for systems with one, preferably two defensive midfielders. And we've spoken about this in a lot of videos over the past. The difference between a defensive midfielder and a central midfielder in game is very noticeable. You'll notice that it's just far easier to protect your own goal, protect your defensive line with those defensive midfielders. With a central midfielder, there are going to be bigger gaps in between the midfield and the defensive line. So you're looking for systems with one, but preferably two defensive midfielders. Yes, we do have the 4-4-2 holding, which is an option, but for even more security, you can go for the likes of a 4-2-3-1, which is again very good for defensive systems. We've seen a lot of kind of defensive-minded managers, I guess, use this system over the years, really a 4-5-1. You can also, which is something that is obviously very natural, of course, go for a 5-back, and particularly the 5-4-1 flat, but what you do want to then do is move these guys so that they are deeper, so that they're defensive midfielders. Now you will have to kind of rearrange the centre backs a bit, as you can see here. Just had to move him out the way a little bit in order to get this, but you will be able to find it. And in that case, we've got defensive midfielders. So if you do use the 5-4-1, which is of course highly suggested, make sure that you adjust the central midfielders so that they're defensive midfielders. One thing I would like to say is to avoid systems, say with these 5-back systems where you don't have wingers, you only got fullbacks or wingbacks. And the reason why is that what you'll find, particularly if you play online, say with online seasons for example, people are going to exploit the wide areas. They're going to try and double up on you down the wings and then get crosses into the box. If you only have one player on each side, it's going to be easier for them to double up on you and exploit those wide areas. Whereas if you are playing, say, the 5-4-1 with defensive midfielders, you can get those wide midfielders tracking back as well. And it's going to really help you out because then your kind of fullbacks aren't going to be exposed. So the systems that you're looking for are the 5-4-1 by adjusting the central midfielders. You can also look at the 5-4-1 with the midfield diamond. That's absolutely fine. The 4-2-3-1s, particularly the 4-2-3-1 wide, which is here, and then you can also go with a 4-4-2 holding as well, which of course we've seen with Simeone at Atletico Madrid for many years. Tactically, of course, we're looking at defensive style drop back. Now, something else worth bearing in mind is the likes of balance, pressure on heavy touch, and press after possession loss. They only have an element of pressing to them. Naturally, they will then generally regain their defensive shape, retreating to the block. However, if you do want an out-and-out defensive system, I would say probably to avoid these because you don't really want to commit. You're instead thinking about protecting your own goal. And this is what we're looking at with these extreme defensive systems. So you probably do generally want to avoid them. You can really switch to them as like an attacking game plan, which I would absolutely advise you have if you are making a defensive tactic. But generally you're going to want to have dropped back. With the width, as is a principle of play, as Jose would say, you want to be compact. You don't want to kind of stretch out the defensive shape and leave lots of gaps for runners to get into the middle. That's how you're going to concede lots of goals. So you're looking for kind of 30 below, for anything below 30 basically, to make sure you have that narrow defensive shape. And the depth, again, you're generally looking for a low block. You can go for a mid block if you want something like 40. That's absolutely fine. But I would say if, again, you're looking for this extreme defensive system and you just want to be able to protect your goal at all costs, then obviously you're looking for that depth to be below 30, because then that's going to give you the low block. So what about attacking then? When you have the ball, well, obviously it's going to be tough to score goals in these systems because they're so defensive minded. There are elements that you can tweak though to make sure that it can give you something going forward. One of these is with the build-up play, you're looking for either fast build-up or long ball. If you do have a defensive system, then generally that's going to mean that you're probably going to try and play on the counter-attack. And so these ones are the ones that are going to lend best to that. Obviously you have slow build-up as well, because you're going to have so many players in the deep areas, and you're probably going to be counter pressed on a lot by the opposition due to the nature of you playing a defensive system. I would avoid slow build up and go for fast build up and long ball. With chance creation, we're looking for the two of either forward runs or direct passing, and again that's playing into the whole kind of counter-attacking element. But also if you're a system playing a team with kind of a target man up front, you want to just go direct into them, hold the ball up, and really just kind of get the ball out wide and get crosses into the box. You also want to make sure that the players in the box is on the low side. Anything 6 and below is what you're looking for really, because naturally you don't want to commit too many men forward if you are playing a defensive system. With this in mind, it's important to note that when you do kind of get crosses into the box and you do lose possession from them, you're going to have more players then protecting you from the opposition counter attack. So that's why you're only looking for anything 6 and below. With corners and free kicks, you actually want to make sure that these are on at least 4. And the reason why is that with a defensive system, what is the most important method of scoring goals? Set pieces. So you want to make sure that you have enough players in the box for those set piece situations, because they are going to be probably your biggest chance of scoring goals. So you want to make sure that these are on at least 4. Let's talk about the player instructions then, the ones suitable for defensive systems. First things first, let me quickly talk to you about the fullbacks. I realise we've got Griezmann at wing back there, but don't worry about it. You, in a defensive system, should be looking to make sure that only one of your fullbacks actually gets forward and supports the attacks. So in this case with the left back, if we've got him on join the attack and overlap, then you probably want the right back to stay back while attacking. And the reason why is, again, it just offers you another level of protection against the counter attack. And it's going to mean that you're going to have more players back. So rather than both going up and being kind of exposed in the wide areas, you're going to be able to kind of keep another man back and spread across the width of that back line. It's also important that any defensive midfielders are on stay back whilst attacking. You're not going to be looking for, say, a box-to-box midfielder from your defensive midfielders. In this case, you might have a central midfielder ahead of him that is a box-to-box midfielder, but if you do have 1 or 2 defensive midfielders, you really want both of these guys to stay back, because again, they're going to be that element of protection. And as we spoke about in the tactical instructions, you don't want them getting into the box really. You instead want them to be that protective unit. With the attackers, it's important to make sure that these guys are on comeback on defense to get them tracking back to support you in that defensive phase. Don't have to necessarily do it with the striker, although if you do want that out and out defensive tactic, you can do that of course as well. You might want him to stay forward and be that out ball, otherwise it's going to be very, very tough to instigate any form of counter attack and kind of just relieve the pressure off you really. But at least with the wingers, and also if you do happen to be playing a central attacking midfielder, let's say you're playing a 4-2-3-1 wide, then make sure that all of these guys are on comeback on defense again to get them tracking back. Right then, that just about rounds it off for my tips for defensive tactics. If you've got any questions about this, you feel like I didn't answer in the video, make sure to hit me up in the comment section down below. But make sure to subscribe to the channel and ring the bell to get notifications every time I upload as well. Don't forget to check out my Patreon. The best way to support the channel. And thank you so much to my lovely patrons for continuing to support me and keep the channel going and allow me to make as much content as I can currently make. Don't forget to check out my video games podcast. The link to that is down below. And also give me a follow on Twitter as well. With that being said, we're going to finish it off there. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. And until the next one, I will see you soon.